everybody. Welcome into Boston Sports Live. Another edition here on a Wednesday night. Mike Felger coming to you from my office. We have Matt Kalman, covers the Bruins, coming to you from his mother's basement, or where are we at, Matt?
Just my office.
Okay, his office, babe. Matt Kalman covers the Bruins and has for a long, long time. You're still at CBS Boston Sports, right?
Yes.
So you're not officially Sports Hub anymore.
Nope, we're not Sports Hub. I'm just Channel 4.
So you're not even my colleague.
Right now I am.
Well, then fuck off. Why are we even talking to you? I'm joking. We're glad we have you, Matt. I'm a little cranky today, in case you haven't noticed, so we're going to take it out on the show. That's usually what we do here. You folks out there, you want to join us, you hit that on-air button in the upper right-hand corner. You can join us as if there were a talk radio show, except we get to see your pretty face, Matt. We only have one rule. I say it every week. If someone reaches to pull out their Hogan, then they're going to get talked. Okay? We don't do that on this show. We just talk sports. If you're going to get graphic, you're out. There is a producer. Otherwise, anything goes, including, I guess, a little salty language from time and again. My question to you, Matt, is someone who's covered this team for a long, long time, this Bruins team for a long, long time. Are you buying in? Are you officially buying in terms of them being a cup contender?
Yes, I'm definitely bought in as a cup contender. Whether or not they're good enough to win it is another story, but they're clearly one of the 4 or 5 elite teams in this league. And it took me a while. I mean, you might not believe it, but I was kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, for the young kids to kind of come down to earth, and it just never happens.
Do you think that they're a cup contender based on their talent or just the way that they're playing?
Well, based on their talent, based on the way they're playing, and the way the league is shaping out. I mean, you have a lot of teams that kind of are pretenders, teams that play. There are teams like Edmonton and Ottawa that we thought were going to be contenders that are completely out of their thing. So a lot of it has opened up, and you see how they play against some of the better teams in the league, say like Toronto. They've handled some of these better teams pretty easily, and so you got to like the way that they respond, and they never seem to falter. Even when they get down some goals or they lose a game, they bounce back. They haven't lost consecutive games of regulation since like November. It's unbelievable.
Right, so that piece of it, there's really starting to build up a DNA on this team of resilience where there's losses where, or there's nights, Matt, in the course of 82 games where you say, well, that's, probably going to be a loss. And, scheduled loss. We used to talk about the scheduled losses under Claude Julien all the time. And they just don't seem to have them. It feels like they bounce back in every situation, which I think would bode well in the postseason, where you suffer a tough loss or two and there's a bounce back factor. If that carries into the postseason, then I guess they are legit.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. We're not going to know until we get to the playoffs how these guys respond. I mean, they talk about as a team ever broken in so many young players at once and had such success, and it's probably unprecedented. But once you get to the playoffs, we know how different it is. You're facing the same team every night. Teams make adjustments. Coaches make adjustments. And there's so much more of a higher level of intensity that players have to meet that you don't know how some of these kids are going to respond. I mean, we saw last year how Ryan Spooner responded. He wound up being a healthy scratch. We didn't get to see Brandon Carlo because he was out with an injury. Now you saw Charlie McAvoy go in there like it was nothing. We don't know what the rest of these guys are going to do. DeBrusque, Heinen, Grzelcyk, what are these kids going to do in the postseason?
Okay, so let's talk to the people, Matt. We bring them in early and often. Again, folks out there pretend it's just a talk radio show, except we get to see your pretty face. Eric in New Hampshire will be up first, but you all get to join us. Again, hit the on-air button, or I guess it's a fan line button, the fan line button in the upper right-hand corner, and you can join us as well. Eric in New Hampshire will join Matt Boston Sports with the Bruins talk. Go ahead, Eric. How you doing?
Good, man. How are we doing today?
Excellent.
So I was talking last week about Tuukka, how I don't believe him, and I still don't. But I guess my question is, if we're buying into this team and we're going to try to not feel the way we feel about the Bruins overall, what's the weakness? What is the weak point on this team? And let's not just say it's easy against Tuukka. For this team, as good as they surprisingly are, where could they falter? Where do they falter?
Great, okay, good question, Matt. If and when they lose, how do they lose?
Well, I think beyond the fact that we don't know what some of these younger guys are going to do in the postseason, I think you look at that second defense pair right now with Torrey Krug and Brandon Carlo. Some of the matchups are tough on Torrey Krug. I mean, let's face it, as for all the grit and determination he has, he can't overcome his size disadvantage. And we've seen Brandon Carlo have some really rough nights, and we haven't seen him in the playoffs yet. And if you always look back and use 2011 as the template, you had Chara and Seidenberg, one pair, and then you had Ferenc Boychuk was that second pair. And that second pair doesn't get enough credit for all the ways it played well.
Eric, to me, it's the second line or the second D pair. I think they're third and fourth lines. I think that Nash line has been made their second best line all season long. Their fourth line has been just tremendous. The first line is the best line in hockey, all right? And I think the first pair of Chara McAvoy is great as well. So I think you're really looking at the Krejci line or that second deep pair. Like that to me feels like the soft spot on the team.
When you talk about like comparing it to 2011, do you think that that's a fair comparison when you say like the game has changed so much? Like 2011 had Thornton running around, throwing weight, and those guys aren't there anymore. So at that point where you had that weight, those anchors for that second pair, could you make the argument that even, the structure of how you line your defense is a little different than what it is or what it used to be?
Eric, thanks for calling in. We'll drop you and continue. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I just think that the game has changed, but I think every team that you're facing in the playoffs is going to have at least two lines. I mean, you start off right now, the matchup looks like Toronto. We know what Chara and the Bergeron line could do against Matthews, but what can they do? What can the second pair do against, a Kadri line or a Bozak line, depending on how Toronto lines it up? I mean, you're always going to have to face a deeper team than you would have to face, facing Ottawa or Calgary, Edmonton, whatever they've been facing, on a nightly basis.
Again, Matt Kalman has covered the Bruins for years and years and years. He covers them now for CBS Boston Sports.com. Trade deadline, Matt, question. What would you be willing to give up to invest in this team?
I would be willing to give up pretty much a pretty good penny for someone like a Ryan McDonough. I mean, I've been on record that I'm all in for that. You add him to solidify the second pair we've been talking about. And
so let me stop you. Carlo Heinen in a first.
Ooh, that's a little steep. I think I've seen that one, and that's a little steep. I don't want to take two players off this roster right now.
Okay, Carlo in a first.
Carlo in a first is then you start to talk. I mean, then you start to think, hey, not only are you getting McDonough for this year, you're getting him for next year, a guy you could be able to sign beyond that, a guy you can build a defense around. I mean, Brandon Carlo is what he is. He's a strong defenseman, and he might be able to respond to be part of that second pair, but he has such a low ceiling to my perspective that there's no offensive upside there. He's a defensive D-man.
DeBrusk in a first.
DeBrusk in a first is very tough because I think Jake DeBrusk is a special talent. I think in this game, with the power forward role is being reshaped as far as speed as opposed to bulk. I mean, we saw last night what the way of the power forward is going with Milan Lucic is kind of a ghost out there now. It's more of a Jake DeBrusk type game, and I think you're looking at a guy who could, be a 30-goal scorer and play with a little bit of grit, and it's hard to part with something like that.
Bigger need before I go to Robbie in Vermont. Second line or second pairing D-man, second, left shots, second D pairing, or right wing for David Krejci on the second line?
I still say second pair, and I think this Holden thing kind of, lets me believe that they're kind of committed to what they have, and that kind of scares me a little bit that they're not maybe necessarily going for the big ad. But I think, Ryan Spooner's responded well, and there are some kids in Providence that could come up and maybe step in if they had to. We saw David Backes play next to Krejci last night. There's enough in-house fixes if they have problems in that second line.
Okay, Robbie Vermont joins us next again on Boston Sports Live. You all can join us by hitting that fan line in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, and we get to see again your pretty face. We're talking Bruins with Matt. We can also weigh in on some of the Red Sox stuff. Continuing Patriots fallout. Hold on, let's go to Robbie in Vermont. Go ahead, Robbie. You're up.
Yeah, I can't hear you guys, but you started to touch on it. This Nick Holden guy, I've never even heard of him. How is adding him gonna do us any good, especially with this young, fast Bruins team?
Okay, Robbie, we'll drop you an answer. Give me a scouting report on Nick Holden.
It sounds like he's kind of like a mobile defenseman, can move the puck a little bit, not much of a physical game. I know he takes a lot of grief from Rangers fans, but it seems like a lot of their defensemen do. A serviceable player, a guy who's played in games lately. I think at the very least he replaces Paul Postma, who's kind of in mothballs right now, hasn't played in 3 months. You don't want him stepping into a lineup in a crucial game here. So it's for depth, and maybe
tell me where he slots, Matt. Is he in your top six? Is he playing every night, or is he up on the ninth floor?
Yeah, he wouldn't really be in my top six at this point, but I'd like to see how he does respond to Bruce Cassidy's system, to who he plays with. I mean, if he's playing right side with Torrey Krug, that does work. If he's playing with Carlo, maybe that can mesh. But I think it's more just a safeguard here in case Kevin Miller can't come back, or in case someone else gets hurt.
Well, why are they making that? Why are they giving up a third round pick and a guy like Rob O'Gara for someone to sit on the ninth floor? That doesn't make any sense to me. To me, for that deal to make any sense, he's got to be better than Matt Grzelcyk.
Yeah, I'm not so sure he is, and I think they just want to. I think they're trying to cover themselves because they saw how the playoffs went last year. They went down to 10 defensemen, and they don't trust the Tommy Crosses of the world to step in. I mean, I said it all along going into yesterday was Kevin Miller's already out. If one other defenseman gets hurt, that's only two defensemen out. But who is replacing him? They don't have the Charlie McAvoy or the Torrey Krug of 2013 to come up and replace this guys at this point. So they're just looking for guys with NHL experience to do that.
Feels like an overpay if it's just for a seventh guy. Ideally to me,
I don't think O'Gara was in their plans as much. I think he wasn't necessarily a Cassidy guy, and they have so many other guys coming up. The Zaboros, the Lindgrens, the Lawsons. There's just so many guys down there that they like that can play the two-way game.
To me, it's also Krug and Grzelcyk are too similar. They're roughly the same player, Matt. So all right.
I mean, there is a lot of problem. I mean, I think that's definitely the unprecedented part here is to have two diminutive defensemen on a championship defense core. I don't know if the game has changed that much that you can survive that.
Our buddy Tommy in Braintree is up next year on Boston Sports Live with Matt Kalman and Mike Felger here, each coming from our palatial offices at our home estates. Tommy's going to come to us from his palatial establishment in Braintree, Massachusetts. Tommy, what do you got?
How's it going, guys? I know you're just talking about what would you give up to get Ryan McDonough, and Matt, I know you're a big proponent of that idea, but if the rumors are true that the Rangers are sticking to, they want DeBrusk for a deal from Ryan McDonough, I don't see how without taking two players off this roster, and that's something you just said you don't want to do. You'd have to give up DeBrusk to get a defenseman, but then you have, 10 NHL defensemen? So, okay, you waive Paul Postma, but then you still have 9. I don't really just see how they get McDonough without creating a bigger hole on that second line and just having too many defensemen in the mix at this point.
Tommy, thanks for the call. Matt, your thought on that. You said no DeBrusk for Ryan McDonough. What if it were Heinen? What if it were Heinen in a first?
Yeah, Heinen is kind of tough to part with, but I would be more apt to do it. But like you said, there would be then a logjam of defense, so you probably want to try to expand the deal to maybe get a defenseman into that deal to go back to New York. I mean, obviously they're going to want a defenseman too, and what they're giving up.
So look, I'm not worried about the logjam at D. What does that mean? That Adam McQuaid's an odd man out, or Kevin Miller, who's a nice player, would be an odd man out? And I think we can live with all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't consider it to be a logjam. To me, Ryan McDonough is an amazing fit for your top four. Just a perfect fit for your top four.
Sure.
So to me, I'm not worried about having too many fifth, sixth defensemen. You get rid of those guys. Don't fall in love with those guys.
Right.
The question is how much, you're finally building something here. It's hitting. It's working. Yeah. How much of that do you want to give up when it seems to be going in the right direction anyway? That's really the question.
Yeah, well, you have to just make sure. We know it doesn't always translate. I mean, I have so many people telling me that they're the best defensive team in the league. Why do you want to add defense? But we know that doesn't translate to the postseason. It's a different world. Like I said, you're facing the same team every night. You're facing the best of the best. You need to have depth. And so, again, yeah, I mean, do you want to mess up what's going on here? Well, the fact is, yes, you want to make sure you have the best team for this spring because you never know when you're going to have this opportunity again. Teams are going to rebound. Teams are going to get better. So many things have clicked for this team that you want to strike here. And maybe, if you have to part with something that maybe you'll look bad 3 years down the road. Maybe Danton Heinen does go somewhere and become a perennial 30-goal scorer. But did you win the cup this year? Did you give it your best shot?
Okay, Marcus in Connecticut will join us next. And, Matt, I invited people to call in and talk about Red Sox if they want, or even Patriots leftovers, because I know people still want to talk about that Patriots loss. So, folks, we got another 5 minutes or so to go. You can call in on whatever you want. Marcus in Connecticut has a Red Sox thought. Go ahead, Marcus.
Just quickly on JD Martinez, I think if he's even 75% of he was last year, I think it's a win for the Red Sox. But on Hanley, are you buying at all the thing about him hitting basically with one arm last year and saying that he's in better shape and he's going to be able to produce so much better? That's all I got. Thanks.
No, I don't, Marcus. Thank you for the call. I don't trust Hanley as far as I can throw him. I don't trust him. Exactly. So I think he was fine last year physically. I think he's been fine physically most of these years. And it's all upstairs or in his heart, maybe even more heart than head with him. I don't trust him. 75% of JD Martinez. So what's 45 home runs? What's 75% of 45, Matt?
30-something, I guess.
I'd take it. I said today, 3,100 for JD Martinez. I would take it and run. Given the Red Sox history of free agent flops, if this guy comes in and hits 3,100, I'll say it's a win.
Exactly. And just got to hope that he can play the field a little bit.
I'm not even sure he needs to. He needs to hit. They were dying for home runs. They were dying for protection in the middle of that lineup. And if he comes in and gives us 3,100, I think that's a win. It's not a home run. It's not like a grand slam home run. But again, It's better than what they've gotten out of their last 5 free agent signings, which have been suck, and suck. Kevin and Russ Roxbury is going to join us next on Boston Sports with another Bruins Thought with Matt Kalman. Again, a couple more minutes to get in, folks out there. If you want to join us, Kevin and Wes Roxbury is up next on Boston Sports Live here on Fancred. Kevin will join us in a second. Go ahead, Kevin. What do you got?
Why, Felger? So I saw a report today that they're willing to take, if you're willing to take Bobby Ryan with Erik Karlsson, that trade. Is that something that you think would take care of both of those issues?
Bobby Ryan and Erik Karlsson, what would have to go back?
I mean, I'm assuming probably a lot. But...
Everything. All right, Kevin, thanks for the call. We'll talk about it. See, Erik Karlsson to me scares me because I think he changes the DNA of your team.
Now I lost your sound. I can't hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now? Okay, Matt. Well, Matt's getting us going. To me, I am down on the Karlsson thought just because I think it would take everything on your roster. It would take a ton of assets on your roster. And he's such a stud. He's such a superstar, which, again, I'm not complaining that you're getting a stud or a superstar. It's just it becomes his team. It becomes Erik Karlsson's team. Whatever team he's on, it's his team. And I still want this team to be Bergeron, McAvoy, Chara, that sort of thing. So Karlsson, to me, changes the whole DNA of your team. I think McDonough fits in more in that top 4 role. I think Matt Kalman has lost us. So you know what? We're not going to butt our head against the wall. We're going to wrap. And we're going to thank Matt, even though he can't hear us. We're going to say, Matt, thank you very much for joining us. And thank you all out there for joining us on another edition of Boston Sports Live. We'll catch you next Wednesday. Bye.